This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
A very good morning to all our special Wild Earth viewers this morning. And we've just decided to come up onto one of the ridges here on Pinda and show you a little bit of a Zululand sunrise. My name is Grant, and we've just got a stunning view off towards the coastline here on and beyond Pinda. This morning we've just decided to stop up here and have a look at this sunrise, switch off the engine, and there is a bit of wind blowing at the moment, but we are just going to be sitting here listening, taking in the sunrise, and then we don't have too much of a plan from there. But I just want to welcome all of you aboard to your own live safari from the African bush. That is Lake St. Lucia that you can see, and some rolling hills on the eastern side of and beyond Pinda Private Game Reserve, and then the beautiful glow starting to come through of the sunrise. Now the sun, I think, has already risen there. It was supposed to rise at 6:30. My name is Grant, and behind the camera we have Johan, and we have just got a beautiful sunrise, but it seems as though there's some very low-lying clouds, and so the sun has actually come up above the horizon, but it seems to be behind those clouds at the moment. We have got a beautiful day in store, not a cloud in the sky this morning, excuse me, and it seems as though we are going to get some warmer weather today. At the moment, only about 12 degrees here on Pinda Private Game Reserve. And just a reminder for everyone this morning, if you're under the age of 18, you can please pop us an email on kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. And you can also register on the Wild Earth website by going over to the Live Safari page, and you can submit your questions for us there. Please send us questions, interact with us. The more the better. The more comments and questions we have, the more motivated all the guides are to give you more and more. Safari Kitty, I couldn't agree more. I mean, we've found a nice vantage point here, and we can see quite far to the east. Those hills in the distance are around about 10 kilometers away, and just another 5 kilometers beyond them is the Indian Ocean. And if you look now, you'll see how that pink is starting to grow, and that pink glow is starting to get stronger, and the clouds are starting to get more yellow above it. It's just beautiful. There is quite a bit of mist that's starting to rise a little bit, but as I mentioned, we've got quite a breeze blowing, and it seems to have picked up the mist from all the valleys and blowing it all around. Oh, there we go. Look at the sun starting to come through. If you go in tight there, Johan, you can see the sun coming through the clouds. Wait for it. There it is. Look at that. Sun and the moon have been providing here on Phinda yesterday afternoon and this morning. Oh, relatively quiet still. I haven't heard any animals making any sounds, no alarm calls, no vocalizing. It is quite chilly. And so it seems as though the animals are going to wait for the sun to rise a bit so that they can defrost before they get going for the day. We're just going to stick here. I'm just going to keep quiet for a little bit while we soak in that beautiful sunrise. We are listening out for any alarm calls at the same time. It sounds as though there's some baboons way off in the distance, so we're just going to listen for a little bit. So it seems as though everyone this morning is just going to be bumbling around. It's quite difficult to make plans, as you all know, while we're on safari, because plans often change. So I think our plan in general for the show this morning is just to bumble and see what we're going to find. I am going to give you all a look at the weather now.
And it certainly is beautiful everywhere this morning. But frosty, I must say. That's why Grant was telling you these animals need to defrost and wait for the sun to come out, much like myself. And there is the beautiful sunrise here on Djuma Game Reserve with the beautiful sounds of the generator, because you know, load shedding is happening. It's me, TRISHALA, everyone, and I've got Gert on camera with me. And at the moment, we're just having a lovely look at the sun. Watching the sunrise. We're so fortunate to watch so many sunrises and sunsets when we're out here. And the sound of the generator just reminds you that we're here in South Africa. Well, our plans for today is to go down, check out the den. Katie, you say, what a beautiful scene. Absolutely. Look at those colors. So much warmth radiating in all sense. actual heat, as well as the colors, everything looks so welcoming, so beautiful. What a wonderful way to start the day, to watch the sun rise. The moon is still high up in the sky behind us as well, so I'm sure we'll see it set soon. So, like I said, our intention, good morning, Impala, is to head down to the den and see what's happening there. We've kind of just been looking around quarantine because there were some alarm calls, and Steve is following up on them further. They're a little bit more north. We just thought we'd have a quick look around here because they sounded like they were around Gallego Pan, or just north of Gallego Pan, while we were doing checks. So it's always a good idea when you hear alarm calls so close to have a look around quarantine, Western quarantine, via tele-access. So that's what we've been doing. But now we're going to head down to the den, having not picked up on anything or heard any alarm call further. Beautiful. All right, let's get going. Steve is also going to, or he wants to, follow up on the lions and see where they've gotten to. We'll also help him by looking for some tracks as we move along. Wow, the sun is very, very bright this morning. That's a good sign, everyone. For some tracks along here. It's an awesome tracking exercise to track lions because you can feel complete by it. They're often walking on roads and they're walking in prides, so they're quite a joy to track. Except, of course, when you track them all the way out of the property into a space that you can't get to. Smells very fresh this morning. Feels very fresh. Let's just listen for a moment. Thought I heard something off to the left. It's the perfect time to be listening out for various calls. Okay, nothing so far. So we're going to keep on moving towards the den where we'll also be able to hear quite well. And we're going to send you over to Pridelands. They're also admiring this beautiful sunrise. They also want to say hello.
Good morning and welcome to Wild Earth. We are live on Bushwalk at Eco Training Pridelands. For a moment, we're just enjoying a sunrise and seeing what's happening around the dam. It's quite a nice and chilly morning on this side, and we hope that things are going to start warming up. As soon as things seem to start warming up, the animals start tending to come to the dam. Compared to a few months ago in the peak of the summer, things were very, very different in terms of behavior when it came to animals. They all tended to come to the dam much earlier and stay much longer. My name is JP LaRue, and behind the camera we've got Glenn. So just coming back to what I was saying about the behavior, it's even the temperatures have now started influencing how the animals will respond to times when they come and drink, and how frequently they will come and drink. This is also one of the very few stable water holes within the area, which ensures that there's a good number of animals that do come and visit here. And quite often when we do come past here in the morning, we note tracks of both lion, leopard, hyena. And yesterday morning, we also noted the tracks of African wild dog that came to have a drink here. One of my favorite carnivores, and I really hope that they're going to hang around in this area for a bit. However, their movements are incredibly unpredictable, and they can cover up to over 50 kilometers in a single day. I always like to think of it and put it into comparison or in perspective, but they can run the distance of the width of a Kruger National Park in a single day. As the Kruger National Park itself is approximately 50 to 77 kilometers wide. So our plans for this morning is we're going to start our walk from here, see what tracks come in and out, and see if there's anything that's worthwhile following up on. A little bit later, when it warms up, we'll return back to the dam. In the meanwhile, we're just going to allow you the opportunity to enjoy the sounds of nature and that beautiful sunrise.
When on safari, there's nothing better than an evening spent under the stars chatting around a fire, with the sounds of the wild all around you. If you sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer, you can build your own memories by joining our guides for regular fireside chats. Subscription payments can be made by PayPal, credit card, and now bank transfer. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature. Across southern and East Africa, the Endangered Wildlife Trust works tirelessly to save species, protect critical habitats, and benefit people. Join the EWT in returning wildlife to the wild. Go to ewt.org.za to find out more and follow our socials to see how you can get involved. Protecting forever, together.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at and beyond Pinde Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
Hello, boy. You are a monster. And he's coming right up to us. Hello, boy. Oh, settle down. Settle down. He is very, very close. He's pushing his trunk against the car. You can feel the car moving. Hey, 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 hey. Stop that.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
What fascinates me most about the animal circle of life is the intricacies between the large and the very, very small. I mean, it's very easy to go out there and find the large. Once you found the large, the cascading effects down to the small absolutely fascinates me. Alertness and situation awareness is by far the #1 aspect for protecting ourselves out on safari.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
Welcome back, everyone. Here on Phinda, we've managed to find a crash of 7 rhinos. You might not be able to see all of them right now. Look at that view of Mom and her calf standing closest to her. Can you see the grass moving? So that's that breeze that I've spoken about. And you might, if you watch their behavior, you might see that these rhinos look a little bit nervous. So watch the ears twitching, moving from side to side, pointing backwards, pointing forwards, pointing out to the side. And that nervous behavior is just because of the wind. You see those big ears? You can imagine how much air and wind will be trapped when the breeze blows over those ears, and how much noise it'll make. If you think of yourself when you're out in the wind, and it's quite uncomfortable when the wind is blowing very strongly and you can't hear anything. Now imagine you don't have very good eyesight and you rely heavily on your sense of hearing, and then suddenly that sense that you rely so heavily on is taken away as well. But it looks as though they've calmed down a little bit now. Jackson, that's a really interesting question. You're asking if all these rhinos are related, and not necessarily. They are potentially related, but it's quite normal for white rhinos to come together in these groups that we call a crash of unknown individuals, unrelated individuals that come together almost on a social level. They just want company. So there's no specific reason behind their grouping, other than the fact that they just want to be with other rhinos. They want to have some companionship. But there might be, well, there certainly is a cow and a calf. This big one that's standing, that hasn't really moved, I think she's sleeping. She looks like it looks like she is a cow. She is the mother of one of the calves that was standing next to her, facing towards us as well. And if you look at her ears, you'll see those little triangular notches. So when we dehorn a rhino here on Phinda, and in fact at all other places, all other reserves where there's a rhino population that's been dehorned, we cut those notches the first time we do the dehorning, so that we're able to identify the rhinos in future. Peter, you're asking what the largest group of rhinos that I have ever seen is. And I haven't seen a big group for a long time. So this group of 7 more recent times is probably the most I've seen, I would say, for this year. But in the past, the biggest group that I saw all together was 17 rhinos, and they were all within about 50 meters of each other. And it's just such an amazing feeling to see such a threatened and endangered animal thriving so well and doing so well. See, all their heads are down now. They've relaxed. They've found a nice spot that's quite sheltered from the wind. You see that big bush behind them? and there's bushes all around, and they've managed to get out of the wind, and so they can hear once again, they can smell everything that they need to, and so they've relaxed and they've gone back to feeding. They're all almost all having a meeting now. All their heads are faced inwards. And there is the very, very soft squealing sound from one of the calves. What's cool, is it possible for black and white rhinos to be together? It definitely is. It's highly unlikely though. Sometimes their habitats overlap, but their habits are quite different. But once again, their habits can also overlap, and they have no issues with one another. They have no relationship with one another. But it is possible through coincidence mostly that they come together. Perhaps a black rhino bull territorial might pick up on the scent of a female white rhino, but he will know that that is a white rhino, it's not a black rhino, and it won't interest him in the way that a black rhino cow's trail would interest him. And I mean, they don't have eyesight to see far, so they won't be able to spot another rhino from the distance. So it really is through coincidence that they'll come together. This area where these white rhinos are right now, that we noticed there's some thick bush around them. It's not really good browsing for black rhino, but say for example these white rhinos were in a different area where there was lots of good browsing for a black rhino, and it was a windy day and the white rhinos were trying to get out of the wind. They might come across a black rhino that's in those thickets, also trying to get out of the wind, but he might be feeding in there. And so that is a time when black and white rhinos could interact. And the light is now, there's some beautiful sunlight, golden sunlight that's shining onto these rhinos. So Johan and I are going to stay here, and I'm going to send you across to JP, who's looking at the moon at the moment.
Good morning and welcome back on a nice crisp morning on Bushwalk at Pridelands. A few moments ago we were just admiring that beautiful sunset, and now we're still admiring that beautiful full moon which is in the sky. It almost always astounds me that an object that can be 360 to 400,000 kilometers away can have such a massive influence on everything that we have around here. So in general, certain species will not be active on full moon, while other species which we consider to be day active actually might become active on full moon. As I mentioned earlier, African wild dog, which we had the tracks coming through this area, often becomes more active on full moon nights. It's quite an amazing thing to follow them in a vehicle with all your lights off and just to see what they get up to. The same with cheetah. I've seen them doing precisely the same. Moon doesn't just only affect the animals over here in the bush, but in the coastal environments as well, as it affects the tides. Especially now that we've got a full moon like this, we've got a higher tide than normal. And that too will influence how different marine species will operate. To come back to the moon, it was a supermoon around by yesterday evening, and it was probably one of the most stunning moonrises I've seen in a long time. It's also quite fascinating to look at the mirrors or seas on the ocean. If you do look through your binoculars at night, we can often also see that there's a large amount of impact craters when looking through binoculars at the moon. And it's believed that the moon has actually shielded the Earth against a number of impacts as well. going to allow you to enjoy the view of the moon and the landscape for a little bit longer, as well as the sounds of nature. And then we're going to start moving off to go and see what we can find. Good morning and welcome to the show again. It is definitely a red-billed buffalo weaver nest, and well done on spotting that. And if we do look at it, it's a very untidy nest, and it consists mainly out of little thorn branches. They go and work quite hard at putting these together, and the thorns obviously add a little bit of extra protection. This one is built over in a laidwood tree that's in the water, and in this case, the nest is just randomly placed. But when we start moving away from water, you can actually use these nests for finding direction, as they're often on the north or northwestern side of the trees. And that's to shelter it from the main direction of where rain will be coming from. Good morning, Anya. It is quite amazing how they build it. It's also amazing how dedicated they are in building it and putting little pieces together. These are a fairly large nest, as you can see. And generally there's a number of them that will build a number of nests quite close by. But we also find quite often that there's a dominant pair that will be breeding when it comes to the red-billed buffalo weavers. One of our other large nest structures that we often find in this area that belongs to another bird that you often find next to water bodies, which is known as a hammerkop, which is a medium-sized uniform brown water bird that's got a flat head, hence the name hammerkop or hammerhead if you translate that. They can also pile large amounts of sticks over several weeks to try and build an incredibly big nest. And then quite close by to where I live, we often find Vero's eagles, which was previously known as a black eagle. These guys can often occupy nesting sites for almost 20 years, and they can also build equally large nests. However, the largest of a nest belongs to that of a sociable weaver, which we often see on the live programs from Tswalu. That's always astounding for me to go and watch those when I am in the Kalahari. And those can get several meters in size. And quite often they can become so big that they can actually break trees as they collapse underneath the weight. It's also one of the reasons why the sociable weavers are found in the arid western half of South Africa, because if they had to try and build nests on the eastern half of South Africa in the wetter, higher rainfall areas, those nests would be permanently collapsing. What I do find quite interesting about nests is that most bird species will just simply use them as an egg receptacle, and once the chick is hatched and fledged, they will no longer use that nest. However, some species are quite smart. They have learned to exploit using the nest of other species as they've lost the ability to build their own nest. Some of these are owls, and then a small little finch that we get around here, which is known as a cutthroat finch. They often go and use the nest of other bird species, and they use it for insulation to protect them against the cold temperatures. Also, some of the birds that do smaller finches, they will also utilize their own nest throughout the year to protect them against the harsh, colder climates. And in warm environments such as the Kalahari, we also find that the sociable weavers also uses this strategy by staying in that nest all year round, and they use that specifically for insulation against the cold winter temperatures, which can be in the minuses in the figures, or to keep them cool in the summer when the temperatures are well above 30 to 40 degrees Celsius. We're going to continue on our walk, and we're going to hand you over to Pinda, so they've got some rhinos.
And welcome back, everyone, to Pinda. We've unfortunately had to come around to a hillside that looks over the hill where we had those rhinos, because they moved away from the road and there was no view from that road. But luckily we are in Zululand and we have some really nice terrain to work with, and so there was a hill opposite the hill we were on. So we tried a little bit closer to those rhinos, but we had no luck from the road there. And I said to Johan, I think we might have to go across the valley. And we've just raced across, and we can still see the rhinos. And they haven't moved too much. They got their heads down, they are grazing. I can, for now, only see the three that Johan has in the frame for you. But as I mentioned earlier, there are 7 moving around there. So from this vantage point, we've got a good view to see which direction they may go. And hopefully they go closer to a road. We can go get another close look. But for now, it's really quite nice to see the surrounding area and the habitat that they are in. This is one of the great things about Pinda, is we have a huge diversity of landscape, plants and animals and bird life. And this habitat that we are in now is called, well, we refer to it as the mixed Lebombo woodland, or Lebombo thornfelt savanna. And so it's a mixture of grass species with some smaller, hardier shrubs. Not too many big trees. Down in the valleys we see weeping boerbeens, and on the hillsides some marula trees. But mostly it's shrubs like magic guarries, white stem guarries, spike thorn trees or bushes, groovias, small buffalo thorns, and then lots of small acacias, well, formerly acacias, now Vicalias and Senegalias. Danny, no, there is no crossbreed of black and white rhino. They can't reproduce. They can't. Excuse me. There's so much dust in the air at the moment. I've got a bit of a tickle in my nose. Black and white rhinos can't reproduce. They can't mate with one another. Their reproductive organs and the system that each of them have are completely different. And so it wouldn't be possible for black rhino and white rhino to mate. Genetically, their DNA is very different as well. So even if a black rhino bull did cover a white rhino cow, nothing would be able to happen. But a white rhino cow would certainly not let that happen. But I wonder if it's ever, I'm not too sure what's ever been done in a lab, but if there's anything that's been done to see whether there could be a crossbreed. It's nothing that I've come across, no literature or anything that I've found to say whether people have done that. But I'm sure there's lots of curious people that would, just like you, that would wonder what would happen. Can hear some baboons alarm calling up on the mountains. But other than that, it's quiet. It's really quiet this morning, and still, it's beautiful. There's birds calling now. Now that the sun has risen, everything is starting to get a little bit more active. But really nice to see this is perfect, the perfect habitat for both actually black and white rhinos. And this would be a place where, this area that we're in now, would be a place where black and white rhino could come across one another and interact. Because in amongst these hills and valleys, we've got some really good grasses, good grazing for the white rhinos. And then lots of shrub, shorter bushes and younger trees that black rhinos would be able to reach the leaves of. And this mixture of terrain offers shelter, and it offers food to both black and white rhinos. So with the hills and valleys, down in the valleys, it's really nice and sheltered. There's usually some water in the valleys. And then the hillsides have got the food that the black and white rhinos will need. So we're just taking in this view and also trying to watch those rhinos and see which direction they do head. And in the meantime, while we do that, I'm going to send you across to TRISHALA.
We are watching some baboons out on quarantine. There on the left is a really big male. And there's a tiny one that's playing around there. Can you see it? Isn't that gorgeous? Are they really, really aware? There's Mum. Really aware of us in the vehicle, so it's actually hard to get them to be in a clear, open area, because every time we move, they run away. So we're just trying to sit or park really still and just watch and see what they show us. Saw that tiny one attached to Mum's belly. Got a free ride. But of course, as they grow, that one was still very little, but as they grow, they'll be able to sit on Mum's back and lean against the crook in the tail. which is a much cooler ride than attaching to your mother's belly. Oh, a bit of grooming going on. We spoke about grooming with the lions last night too, and how it releases all these great hormones. For both the groomer and the groomee. Helps to strengthen those bonds between a pride, like we spoke about yesterday, and between a troop, but especially between the alliances within the troop. So with Chakma baboons, females' closest alliances or friendships are with males. Not necessarily the males who she's mating with or the father of her young, but rather just males that she's good friends with. But the male that she's good friends with or has an alliance with should have a good relationship with other males so that they can protect her offspring. It's very complex. That's a different style of traveling on your mother. Come on. Climb on. Show us what that tail is used for. Ah, that is too sweet. Hi, Jade. You'd like to know if baboons travel in large groups? Yes, they have a troop, and they move around within that, or with that troop. So they'll move around and they'll roost in different trees each night, and they'll spend all of that time together because they're very social animals. They can be small groups sometimes, with just maybe one adult male, but most of the time it's several adult males, just one that's the alpha male. Ah, look at this precious. Oh. I think this is the smallest one I've ever seen out here. That's very, very sweet. Oh, playtime. I'm going to sit here and just continue to watch them and see if they come closer or we get a clearer view. But we're going to send you over to TRICO at Ngala to say good morning.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to and Beyond Ngala. As you can see right in front of us, we have a beautiful male leopard. Morning once more. My name is TRICO, and behind the camera I have Mpo with me. We're going to quickly try to follow this leopard, as it looks like he is now starting to move. I also don't think he's a very relaxed leopard though, but we'll see. Let's see if maybe we can have a view of him again. Yo, he just disappeared into some thick stuff. Okay, I can see him. Just gonna move a little bit more forwards. I can see where he is. He could be potentially as well trying to hunt in these areas. I know there's some big clearings here where impalas likes to hang out. So I'm just gonna go a little bit more forwards. Okay, let's stand by here. You can see there's some impalas running in a distance here. So I think this leopard is very much interested in those impalas. So I'm just gonna wait it out so that we don't disturb him. And those impalas are just busy chasing each other. As you would know, this is the rutting season, so they always do that. I don't think those impalas are actually aware that leopard is here, because they're just busy chasing and screaming at each other. Okay, I think let's move around a little bit. Welcome, Andrea. I'm glad that you can join us. Could this be the Makoti male? I believe that is your question. Andrea, no, that is not the Makoti male. This is a different leopard. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to go down a little bit. So this is unfortunately not the Makoti male. Makoti male mostly operates further in the central parts of the reserve and further south and slightly east of the reserve, and we are further west of the reserve. So unfortunately not. I don't think I've seen this leopard before, and this is the first time that I've seen him. But just looking at him as well, he looks fairly relaxed. I think he's also getting back onto the road. There's a water hole a little bit further down where it's going, so he might be going to that water hole. Let's see if we can keep up with him. So earlier when we found him, he was just sitting in the middle of the road, I think trying to get warm. Right, let's see. Can you see him? There he is. All right, we're gonna stop here. So in that area where he's going, where that water hole is, There's a huge clearing. And also these impalas and other general game, they love that area. So he's definitely moving around hunting. As you can see, he walks a bit, stops, and look around, looking for any opportunities. As you can see now, he's went off the road and now he's walking through the thicket. So I think maybe trying to even get more cover. Because it looks like he's interested in something a little bit forward. Let's go a little bit forward more. And see if we can find him more. Maybe see what he's interested on. Got it. I believe one viewer is saying a very beautiful leopard. Yes, I mean, it's magnificent, and his size also, he's very big. So I'm just gonna stand by here. I'm trying to figure where exactly he's gonna go, because this area where he's going is a little bit much thick. And we're gonna try to see maybe we won't lose him. Okay, there he is. I have his visual. Let's try to follow him. All right, I think we're gonna try to follow it and see if maybe we can keep up with him.
Helping kids to fall in love with nature is critical. Our future depends on it. Wild Earth has had the opportunity to take many children from all over the world on safari, some from right here on our doorstep.
Welcome to those of you watching from Hananani Primary School, just outside Dixie Village.
They love learning about nature because, you know, now we're having like a crisis of like rhino poaching. We all need each other. So it is very, very important for the kids to learn about animals, on how to save them or even to protect them.
My favorite animal is an elephant because they are very cute, although they're eating the trees or the plants, but they are still very cute to me.
The way they explained the animals, asking questions, and we saw our names on the screen, it was so exciting.
Our bodies are made up of about 60% water, which means that in a very short space of time, you can dehydrate completely. A relatively efficient way of collecting water early in the morning is to take an absorbent material like a sock and to walk through the grass, absorbing the condensed dewdrops on the grass. Once the material is saturated, you can then squeeze it out into a container, or you can suck it out directly into your mouth.
I love being a cam-up for Wild Earth. The animals coming right up close to you, especially like lions. Sometimes you get nervous, but you have to go with the flow. My favorite animal to film is the elephant because of how big it is. But when it's really up close to you, it's one animal that you would say, I really respect you.
Guys, just watch what's happening. See, watch the elephant, watch the lions. See, the first ones to run are the cubs. Can you see them? They are right here. I'm not sure how scared you were, but I was quite nervous. But absolutely incredible.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Welcome back, everyone. And these rhinos are playing really hard to get with us, so we've just framed up some zebras to watch in the meantime. The rhinos are right in the middle of the block between all of the roads that surround that section of bush, and they're just moving around slowly, feeding. They don't have a general specific direction that they're heading in, so we're still in the same spot. But looking at the zebras, they're doing pretty much the same thing as the rhinos, standing with the biggest, broadest part of their body onto the sun to absorb as much of that warmth from the sun as possible. And those of you that were watching with us yesterday might remember we saw the zebras with their bums facing towards the sun, and the bums being quite a narrow surface area, but also mostly white in color, would reflect a lot of that, the UV rays of the sun, because it was very hot yesterday. Now this morning, when it's quite chilly, they've turned broadside on to the sun for the biggest possible surface area, and so that they can try to absorb as much of that sunlight as possible. And see, there's the one in the middle of your screen is not feeding, and the one high up the road also not feeding, just enjoying the sun. Okay, now it looks like it's going to move off and start to feed a little bit. Amazing, those tails are still swishing. And they swish through the night. Oh, there's quite a good view of the rhinos now, Johan. I can only see through my binoculars, but if you pan, same height as that, just pan to the left. Underneath that big, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Yeah, in there. A little bit more left. There we go. Yeah, coming out a little bit now. See a few different shades of those rhinos. So some reddish patches, some grey, some brown, and some lighter, almost yellow colour as well. And they've been lying down in some red soil. They wouldn't have been mud wallowing last night, but they would have found a nice bare patch of soil to lie down in. Yeah, you got them. You got them. They're right in the middle. There's another one off to the right-hand side of the screen. Looking over. Yes, rhinos do fight quite seriously, and when you were not with us about 4 or 5 minutes ago, there were 2 bulls from this group that were fighting, but because of the fact that they're with this group and they're following them around, and also based on their size, they were not dominant or territorial bulls. They are still young bulls, and so they were more something of like a play fight. That was more a play fight rather than a serious territorial fight. But rhinos can actually kill one another, especially the big bulls. The females, they will defend themselves with their horn. But bulls can actually, when it comes to competing for territory, white rhino and black rhino bulls, they actually sharpen their horn against rocks and termite mounds, and they will use that very, very sharp horn to try to defend themselves and also attack other bulls. They fight just as effectively with just their, which you can call it a stump now. Once they've been dehorned, they fight just as effectively. Just seems like the fights take a little bit longer, but it's much better for rhino conservation in that they can't kill each other. So sometimes they would get some puncture wounds on the body, through the ribs, puncture a lung, and those holes that were caused by another rhino's horn would get dirt in them, and they would actually start to get infected, and rhinos would sometimes die from the bacterial infection, or they would die if they've got a punctured lung. These rhinos do seem to be heading closer to the road, towards where those zebras are. We might just be able to get a view of them from the road. So we're going to try and reposition. And in the meantime, I'm going to send you across to JP, who's busy looking at some tracks.
Good morning and welcome back to Bushwalk. As we started moving away from the dam, we noticed a large number of tracks of predators that came in and out from this area. And two of them that stood out as both leopard as well as spotted hyena. And if we look right over here, we've got a leopard track on this side, and our leopard is actually moving into a westerly direction, while our hyena is moving into an easterly direction. Just to point out the differences for you between the two, if we look over here at the back of a pad of this hyena, we'll only notice two lobes. If we also notice how the toes are formed, they almost look like kidneys or a bunch of bananas that have been tucked into one another. And then right over here at the tip, we'll notice where the nail has been marking, which is one of the characteristics which separates hyena from typical cats, with the exception of cheetah that does not retract its nails. Then over here, our leopard track, as we already mentioned, the leopard is moving into a westerly direction, and we'll see 1, 2, and 3 lobes over here. It's quite a small track, and the toes also are very slender, and we'll notice that there's no nails marking. So the slender toes, the small size of a track, that indicates that this is most likely a female that has moved through here. If we come a little bit further forward, here you will notice those 3 lobes which I mentioned, which is typical of the cats, as characteristic that separates them from hyena as well as dogs. However, dogs and hyenas are not related, although they superficially resemble one another. The hyena is actually more closely related to cats. Now, these two animals, where we see the tracks, they've been internal enemies forever and ever, and they don't really get along very well. So quite often we'll see that the hyenas will trail the leopard specifically to see if they can actually steal a meal from him. These animals are in competition with one another on a number of different levels when it comes to access to food. They also compete with other large predators, such as lion, obviously dominates the other two species, as if they are much larger. We also find that these animals will also outcompete one another by killing one another's cubs or pups to prevent that these can breed and also have access to food resources. So one of the strategies that the leopard has evolved is to actually take its prey up into a tree so that both hyena and lion cannot steal its food. Meanwhile, we're going to hand you over and see what the others have on show.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Djuma. Welcome to my vehicle. Rusty has been working hard trying to track down. First of all, we had some alarm calls this morning. Hello, my name is Steve, joined by Darren on camera, and we're excited to have you with us. We had some alarm calls as we were leaving camp of some kudu. We went to try follow up. We weren't able to locate anything, and then we went to pick up on tracks of the Telematis, who were heading sort of south and then west, and they have been located deep in the bowels of Simbimbili, so we aren't able to get signal there. So now we find ourselves back on Djuma. Time to have just a quick cup of coffee while we plan the rest of the morning. And as we did that, we just picked up on tracks of a female leopard right here, heading north back towards quarantine. So we're going to see if we can maybe pick up on her. Last gulp of coffee and off we go. You ready, Darren?
Ready.
Excited?
Excited.
How's everybody doing this morning? We're good. It's a beautiful morning. It's already warmed up. Tracks of a female leopard heading straight up this road. Let's go and see if we can figure out where she's going to, but TRICO has already found one.
Welcome back, everybody. So we did manage to loop around and manage to find this leopard, and he's interested in a male young kudu. As you can see, they're standing very, very quietly there. Also, I think it'll be quite difficult for him to take down that kudu because it's actually quite a very big animal. But also it's quite interesting to see him that he's very, very interested. And the kudu, I don't think we can see it from where we are. It's actually on the other side of the thickets. But yeah, I think the kudu just saw him and took off. Let's try to keep up with him. Make sure we don't lose him. How many leopards are there in this area? It'll be really, really be difficult for me to actually tell you the exact number. But I know we do have a lot of leopards here. And mostly the ones that we see are the ones that are relaxed. Like, for example, this leopard, he looks very, very relaxed. But there are some leopards that we haven't seen that lives amongst these thickets or in and around this area that are very, very shy. So there's quite a big number of them in these areas here. Let's trust you can keep up with him. Right, I think I'm going to send you over to Pridelands for now while we follow this leopard.
Good morning and welcome back to Bushwalk. A few nights ago we found a herd of buffalo, which was roughly some 66 to 70 odd buffaloes in that group. A fairly nice sized breeding herd for this area. And we noticed that they also came in to come and drink at the dam last night. There's a few telltale signs that we have over here. Firstly, it was a very large cowpat, which has been deposited over here. So in general, if we look at buffalo, they're bulk grazers. They eat a large amount of unpalatable grasses and coarse grasses that they will feed on, and they can gain sufficient nutrition out of that. And then we also see the track over here. And if we look at the track, it's a very rounded track. It fits neatly into a square compared to that of giraffe, which would have been fitting into a rectangular track. We also look at the direction it's moving. It's also moving straight into a westerly direction, away from the dam. And also a few other things that we always look for when we are finding big herds of buffalo coming through an area is to see if there's tracks of lions that are actually following them. And the reason why we do that is that they often trail them specifically to predate on them. And then we will quickly see if we can follow that signs and catch up on a potential sighting of lions and buffalo interacting. Some of my most memorable sightings has actually been kills where buffalo has been taken down by a lion, especially when I was working in the Nwanetsi concession within Kruger National Park. We had fairly large-sized grouped lions, which were ranging between 20 and often in the earlier days they were up to almost 50 lions. And these guys started specializing in following buffalo. And what they will do is they will follow and check if there's any weak or sick individuals at the back, or anybody that's got broken legs or injuries that might slow them down. And those are the individuals that the lions will specifically target, because you never really want to risk going for a healthy buffalo, because you can really end up coming onto the short end or the business end of their horns, or being trampled by a healthy, full-grown buffalo, which is weighing anywhere in between 800 and 900 kilograms. 800 kilogram range is more typical of South Africa, while in East Africa they can get up to 900 kilograms. And you think of it, they're incredibly strong, tough animals, although they do look like a very tame cow. They're nothing but tame. So we're just going to carry on from here, see what we can go and find. Hopefully there's something else. In the meanwhile, we're going to hand you over to TRISHALA and see what she has on offer.
This is a friend of mine. We've been friends for about the last 2 or 3 nights. I've been seeing this flap-necked chameleon on Gallagher Shortcut after drive. And I always get caught up doing something in the morning and then forget to find him during the day to show it to you. But here he is. Or it is. I haven't been able to sex it. But if you didn't know, it's a flap-necked chameleon, and it's the only type of chameleon we get here in the Sabi Sands. I know it does look a little bit sad today. Why are you sad, chameleon? The availability of his favorite food source, grasshoppers and other insects, is slowly waning. At least that's what I think it is. I think it's also the little foam mouth that this chameleon has got going on that makes it look particularly cute. It looks like it's got a little meek kind of smile. It's quite a big one. It's flattened its body a lot. You can see it's very tall, or long, or high rather, and flat. And that's because it's trying to collect a lot of that sun that's pouring through. It's heating up quite nicely already. And it's a nice darkish green, There's a few darker spots in it too, and that will help it to collect sunlight. Darker colors absorbing more light and therefore warmth to help it out. It's got a bit of an injury on its, well, I don't even think you'd call it a nose, but between its eyes. So it's not a chameleon in the best condition I've ever seen, but it's nice and big. Anyway, let me send you over to TRICO. Ooh. Let me send you over to TRICO. He's still with that leopard. Hopefully you'll have a nice sighting there.
Welcome back, everybody. So we're still keeping up with this leopard, but he is moving quite quickly. But it looks like right now there's... Let's try to stand by here. And as I said earlier on, looks like he is hunting. All right, I think I'm gonna move around because it's quite tough where it is. It's nice and thick because it's also interested in some prey animals in the distance. But in the meanwhile, I'm gonna send you over to Pinda.
Welcome back, everyone. And look at this scene. Our patience has paid off. So you might have noticed earlier when I was talking about the available resources in this area, Johan briefly showed us some water down in the valley below. And just as we had hoped, they've made their way down and are now all perfectly lined up in a row. Well, they were. One of them's turned around and just having a drink. Just a beautiful, beautiful setting and scene. Oh, I wish you were here, because there's slurping sounds that I can hear, almost like a giant straw coming from these rhinos' mouths, which would, I'm sure, be impossible to hear through the mic, but it's just something else to this experience that we're having right now. Let's see, this one on the far right has now come to a spot where where I have seen rhinos wallowing before. So it's still part of this pad, but it's a much shallower section. But it seems as though they're only interested in drinking. Which makes sense, despite what it looks like. I mean, there's beautiful sunlight shining on them. It is still quite chilly. So it's not likely that they're gonna wallow in the mud, because they typically only do that to cool down and to protect the skin from the sun and also to get rid of parasites. But when it's chilly like this, they're not likely to lie down in the mud. What a nice sighting that is. So I'm going to send you across to TRICO, who's still with the leopard.
Welcome back. Thank you, Grant. So we finally kept up with this leopard. He was walking, in such a pace earlier on. Scent marking, and was walking sort of like zigzag. And then sometimes he would stop, smell. So, which makes us think that he is also marking his territory while also trying to find any opportunities of prey around. There he is again, moving. So where he's going, there's a water hole, a big water hole. So I'm just wondering maybe if he's gonna go there. Let's try to keep up with him again. Stand by then, going live now quickly. But yeah, we're still south of the demo. So it looks like this male here, this is part of his territory. As we'll see him, like he was busy scent marking, moving around, asserting his dominance in these areas. But in the meanwhile, we're gonna try again to keep up with him and see if maybe we can find him again.
Do you dream of an African holiday in unparalleled luxury? Where your days are spent in the company of wildlife and cooling off in your very own plunge pool? Well, this month's prize may be the one for you. Expertly camouflaged into the unspoiled environment of the world-famed Sabi Sand Game Reserve, it's hard not to fall in love with Simbambili. Sign up to be a Wild Earth explorer before the end of May, and you and a friend could be jetting off to this ultimate escape from reality. A luxurious safari and spa getaway wrapped up in one impressive package. Wild Earth explorers, it's in your nature.
Take 27. I'm Carol from Chicago, USA. This is me 5 years ago. No music, no editing, real time. I was hooked. Thank you so much for that, Wild Earth.
I had lost my job, and I also lost one of my pets. So Wild Earth has seen me through very hard times, and I just want to thank all of you for being there for me when I needed you most.
We love you. We start and end our day with you, teaching our grandkids all about nature through you, your wonderful educational safaris.
We really do appreciate being on safari with you, especially when it's cold and wintry in Canada.
And considering we've been in lockdown for 18 months here in Saudi and I've not been able to fly back to South Africa, I want to thank you for bringing your safari back into my life every single day and night. I love it, love it, love it.
My name is Lauren and I'm currently working in Juma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
Good morning and welcome back to Pridelands. We're still out on bushwalk and we just found the tracks of African wild dogs. And we were looking at it and the tracks are actually over the tracks of our vehicles from this morning that left camp. So which means these guys have come in to come and have a drink and have now left. I just want to show you how the track looks like. It's quite a neat little track. Over here at the back, 2 lobes, unlike the cat that had 3 lobes. And then if we have a look over here, 2 outer toes and the 2 center toes. Quite typical, it's a very long, narrow track with those 2 center toes marking quite close by to one another. And then also typical of dogs, the nails marking over here on the track. So this is quite a difficult one to go and follow up on. Very unlikely to be able to follow up on foot either because of the speed at which these dogs move. I've already watched them running at speeds of well over 88 kilometers an hour and almost up to 90 kilometers an hour while they were following a springbok and a hunt. So generally we find that they form large packs which consist out of both male and female, which will be the dominant pair that will be breeding, and then a number of other helpers. We also find that African wild dogs' success is in their teamwork, and as they work together as a group, they're quite effective with hunting, making them as effective as up to 80% compared to most other predators, which is in the vicinity of 23 to 30% when it comes to a hunting success rate. I do often have seen them where they don't hunt as effectively together as a group, but they actually mess up. So generally we say that a pack should consist of a number of, or a minimum of 5 individuals to successfully raise pups. However, I've seen single females that has broken away from the main groups, being able to support themselves for over 2 years. South of Kruger National Park, there was an area where I worked, which was called Skakuza. Which I always consider as the capital of the Kruger National Park. And there I used to find a single female that used to hunt on her own. And she was very successful at bringing down impala. Currently there's another one in the estate where I live that has sneaked in there, also a single female that's moved in, broke away from a group. And she's also recently been found to hunt impala as well on her own. She tends to come and go. Sometimes we see her for a few days in a row and then she disappears again for several weeks at a time again. Nobody not quite sure where they go. As mentioned earlier, these dogs can cover big distances. And in general, we find that they can cover 50 kilometers, 55 kilometers of ease in a day. If we look also why they're one of the most endangered animals is that they need large areas that they can hunt. And within the Kruger National Park, the typical pack size needs an area of approximately 450 square kilometers of area that they need to cover. While in East Africa, they can range between 3,500 and 4,500 square kilometer areas that they need to cover. We're going to continue. We're going to go and see what we can go and find. Hopefully these dogs have rested somewhere. However, it's still cool, so most likely unlikely.
Well, best of luck to JP. I hope he does find those wild dogs. I would love to see wild dogs on foot. That would be an amazing experience. So, we are still with these rhinos, and they seem to be settling down. If you look carefully, you might see that 2 of them, and it looks like the 2 younger ones in the group, have laid down. So they've had their fill of water and they've moved into this little valley next to us. And it seems as though the wind is sheltering them quite nicely. I think wings of dove or rings of dove. Thank you for your comment. I couldn't agree more. It is really, really nice. Really special to see the white rhinos on Phinda doing well and to see calves. And of the calves, there are some young females. And so the breeding population is pretty stable. And the promising thing is that Phinda is not the only place where there is a stronghold of rhinos. There are a few other places where the rhinos are doing very well. But the threat of poaching is always still there. Even of these rhinos with short horns, or dehorned rhinos that have got a bit of regrowth. And so we're doing everything that we can to protect them. And right now we are right in the middle of Phinda. This group of 7 are, we perceive to be quite safe. But we've got lots of measures in place to look after these rhinos. One of which being the dehorning, but in terms of manpower, there's so much being done on the ground all the time to ensure the safety of these rhinos and all the animals on Phinda. And getting back to Danny's question that he had earlier about rhinos, black rhinos and white rhinos being able to reproduce. So in the wild, I don't think it's ever happened, but you never know. It might be possible. But I just did a quick search and I found a very interesting article actually posted on Londolozi blog of a situation in the 80s when there were 2 white rhino cows in an enclosure, a large enclosure like a big boma within a game reserve, and there was a black rhino bull and a 4-year-old white rhino bull, and one of those females, the female white rhinos, actually fell pregnant and gave birth. And physically, reproductively speaking, the white rhino bull that was in there, he was only 4 years old. He was not of a reproductive age, so he could not have been the father. But what was born was a hybrid or a cross between a black rhino and a white rhino, and it exhibited features of both black rhinos and white rhinos. So it had a wider mouth. If we look at that big white rhino there, you'll see the very square, wide lip. So this hybrid rhino had a square lip, but then right in the middle it had a point, just like the black rhino's lip. And then it had ears similar to the white rhino, but also basically half white rhino, half black rhino. Instead of being this tubular shape, they were still long, elongated like the white rhino's ears, but then the outer edges were rounded. And another thing was that the head, like it was basically halfway between the black and white rhino once again. So it was a little bit longer than the black rhino, but not as long as the white rhino's head. So this calf, it turned out, was exactly half black rhino, half white rhino. But unfortunately it only lasted till about 2000. They found out in 2004 that it was half black, half white rhino. But it was unfortunately put down shortly after it was born. But if you want to go and read about it, you can find the Londolozi blog post. So from here, I think with these rhinos settling down to rest, Johan and I are going to continue, see if we can maybe try and find some cheetah this morning and send you off to one of our other locations.
Come back ever and listen to the ground hornbill call.
2 of them. One of our endangered birds. Largest of the hornbills. Incredibly territorial. Its loud booming call travels quite far. Still following tracks. This female leopard has cut through the block here towards this tree that the hornbill's in. So we're just checking the road on the other side to see if she's come out. Found some scat as well. It was still quite fresh. It's possible that the kudu that we heard alarm calling earlier was shouting at this female leopard. Megan, they are quite haunting calls, aren't they? I do like the sound too. It's something you hear normally first thing in the morning. 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, you can hear those territorial calls booming out. It's so nice how relaxed they are. Now, they're called ground hornbills because they spend a lot of their time moving around, walking. They have a very wide diet. Small mammals up to the size of squirrels, even hares, reptiles, lizards, snakes, even able to get tortoises out of their shells. Will also eat insects and frogs, snails. It's a very wide variety of food and a very powerful beak. The largest cooperative breeder. They live in groups, but only one female will have eggs, and they're all band together to rear one chick out of 2 eggs. The second chick or second egg gets abandoned. That's almost an insurance egg. And the first one, after hatching, incubation stops. So researchers and conservationists from Endangered Wildlife Trust have been monitoring these nesting sites, and when a second egg in a nest often is taken once the chick is hatched, to then rear elsewhere so as to reintroduce these birds back into the wild. Getting the preen oil from the preen gland. Wonderful, wonderful yoga stretches this morning. Mekanova, yes, they are indeed. Although these are monogamous but cooperative, so a group of them will hang out together, but only one female breeds.
Station.
Sorry about the Game Drive radio.
nice to see them going about their daily activity. They're normally quite a shy bird, moving off. The Afrikaans name is bromvoël. Bromvoël. I'm not sure what brom means. Voël is Afrikaans for bird. Probably got something to do with the call. But I'm not sure. Maybe one of our Afrikaans viewers can let me know. Always like to add in some local names. The Zulu is Nkundudu, which is no doubt to do with the call.
Welcome back, everybody. So, this leopard just went some very, very thick stuff. And in that area, there's also a big drainage line. So we're trying to see if maybe from the top of this demo, we'll be able to see this animal. Yeah, put your camera up. Alright, so we managed to have a visual of him. He might move around, maybe we'll see him. So there he is. Look at that. But right now he's working in a very fast pace. That was quite incredible, hey? But to be honest, the area where he's going, it's very thick and there's big drainage line there. It'll be very difficult for us to cross that drainage line. But it was quite, quite a nice surprise. I mean, we've been looking for a leopard for quite some time. And, finally we did see him, which is quite nice. I think from here, I'm going to try to move towards, there's a little or small waterhole right in front of us. Just see what we find there. Whew, what a morning. So it's quite nice to see, how he was relaxed earlier on. And we did spend enough time with him. We're following him around, even though we did lose him every now and then. But then as time goes on, he just started to, become more unrelaxed and started to pick up more pace. As soon as we get closer to him, he just kept on running and running. But yeah, that was quite nice. But I think the sun is starting to slowly heat up. So I think he might be looking for an area or even a tree or a thicket to settle down for the day. we'll see what we find in this waterhole. Yesterday we were here, we came through here and we saw some crocodile babies as well in this area. But for now, let's head to that waterhole. I'm gonna send you to JP, and he wants to take you guys on a walk.
Good morning and welcome back on Bushwalk. We made our way a little bit further away from the waterholes and then came up here to an area which we call zebra plains to come and see what we can find. We did manage to locate some zebra busy staring at us from behind the vegetation. Also a little bit further distant away from them, there's also some common impala that is also having a look at us. We also often find a blue wildebeest that hangs around here, which has his little territory in this area. These three animals are quite often feeding in association with one another, as that they directly benefit from one another's feeding techniques. So the zebra has the ability to feed on much coarser grasses. They eat all the bulk stuff and they open up the area quite nicely for the wildebeest and also for the impala, but has got a fairly small muzzle in comparison to that of a zebra. But the zebra has also got another trick up the sleeve. They've managed to have scissor teeth on both upper and lower jaw, while the other two species don't have that. They only have it on the upper jaw to cut for grasses. We also find with the impalas that they are mixed feeders, so they benefit from those grasses that are remaining, or the softer grasses that's remaining, but they also will feed on leaf material. So depending on the season and the availability of different food types, they will vary their feeding techniques. And sometimes you'll see them eating both grass as well as leaves a few minutes apart from one another. But this is a strategy that enables them to have an all year round good body condition. They don't lose body condition as quickly as many other species, which is only restricted to eating grass or only restricted to eating leaf material. We also find with the zebra that they're also in very, very good condition at the moment. And it's amazing how well they support themselves on all these bulk, unpalatable grasses compared to some of the species which are incredibly selective about the quality and the length of grasses that they feed on. We often just have a look at the zebras by looking at their manes, and we'll see that if the mane is still in an upright position, that will indicate that they're still in an incredibly healthy condition, as when they lose body weight or the fat reserves become depleted, those manes start falling to the side. If we just pan back onto those impalas, you'll notice that some of them is actually grooming themselves. So what they're doing is that they're removing ticks from their own coat. And what they have is a very unique adaptation that their teeth is loose in the sockets so that they can actually assist with removing ticks and parasites off a coat. At this time of the year, when some of the males still have territories, which might extend up till into next month, we find that these males often have a 6 times higher tick load on their bodies, because they don't get groomed by anybody else. You can groom yourself, but it's not as effective as when your buddies come and groom you and remove the parasites off you. You also don't want a large amount of ticks on your body, because they will also increase the stress level on your body. And the higher the stress levels on your body is, the more the other parasites and parasite loads can increase on your body, aggravating your overall health condition even further. So winter months can be incredibly tough times for animals out here in the bush, as that there's less food available and less palatable food available. They also have to feed for much longer to actually get full, compared to in the summer months when there's that lovely protein-rich grasses available. As mentioned earlier, these winter cycles, or 6 months of low rainfall in the low veld, will actually act as an actual selection tool, removing sick, old and weak animals out of the system. We've also mentioned in some of the previous episodes that we also have slightly longer spells where we have 7 to 10 years of high rainfall, followed by 7 to 10 years of intermediate periods. And within that, we also have a 6 months low rainfall or high rainfall periods. And that also acts as very important natural selection tools within the ecosystem. Just like ticks and parasites will act as natural selection tools by bringing in disease into an ecosystem. We quite often think of them as harmful or wasteful, but every little organism within this ecosystem has their own function. Other than this bringing in disease, ticks also will increase and be there for food for many other bird species, such as the oxpeckers and a number of others that will feed on them. I'm going to be quiet for a short little while and just allow you to enjoy the sounds of nature and to just watch what everybody gets up to. Also, if you notice that the impala and the zebra are feeding very close by to one another, the wildebeest as well, he's just behind the vegetation, we just can't see him at the moment. So they don't only just benefit by feeding in association with one another for food gain, but they also benefit from one another by vigilance. And especially zebras are very, very keen-sighted. And when I started learning to become a trails guide, we were told if we can sneak up to zebras and baboons, we can be successful with approaching any animal because they normally spot you well in advance.
On board we have a very special guest joining our live safari today. We have Sue Fogel, who has bought a ticket to Dream.
It was an easy decision to purchase a ticket to Dream because I've been working with animals for my whole life, and I think what Wild Earth does here, bringing live safaris into your home, is just remarkable.
If you want to go on safari with a Wild Earth guide whilst honing your bush knowledge and of course featuring in one of our shows, then head over to our website.
Well, since I've been watching for such a long time, I thought it would be a good idea for me to come here in person.
Sign up to be a Wild Earth explorer and you could be making your first ever on-screen appearance.
If you have a chance to do it, I highly recommend it. To feel the sun on your face and the wind in your hair and to smell the smells and just kind of be in the animal's presence. It's undescribable. I highly recommend it.
For many years, Wild Earth has taken viewers from around the world to the Mara Triangle, a place of majestic beauty and abundant wildlife. But it wasn't always like this. Before 2001, it was infested with poachers. Illegal harvesting and hunting was rife. Now the situation couldn't be more different. The hard work and dedication of the Mara Conservancy has revolutionized this magical land. But now, the loss of revenue from tourism has created a grave crisis. The Mara Conservancy needs help if they are to continue protecting the reserve and supporting the local communities whose livelihood depend on its survival.
It's a huge privilege to be in these incredible places with these amazing animals. I love filming lions. When they do get up and do something, it's always spectacular. When they are playing, are incredibly fun to watch, especially subalterns and cubs. I love being in the bush and working in these incredible places with these amazing animals. We want to bring it to you so that you can almost feel like you're right there and be able to experience it and enjoy it the way we are.
So welcome back, guys. I just came across this crocodile just sitting there on the edge of the water there with his mouth wide open. And I think what happened was, it was in the water and came out of the water since the water started to get much more colder. These animals are cold-blooded, so they constantly need to get out and try to absorb more heat. Just there waiting, loving life where it is. And also, even though it's like, very relaxed, not even moving much. But if any animal comes around here to come, maybe try to have a drink, animals like impala, or even wildebeest, or even a zebra, this animal will try to hunt them. But another reason why it might be sitting right there or laying down there is because this crocodile has little babies around here in this area. So a little bit more further forwards of it, there's some babies. Let's see if maybe we can show you guys those. They're still very, very tiny. So she won't move very far from them. She'll still be around them, offering them protection. So you can see those tiny little things there, sort of like brownish things. There they are. So those are the babies there as well, sitting there getting warm. I mean, as the sun starts to get warmer and warmer, they might probably go back into the water. And these animals constantly need this bit of heat for them to be able to function. And as you can see, they're lying just under those bushes there. They're not like out in the open where they're much exposed, because there are some other raptors or some eagles that might catch them and feed on them. So where they are, they're much more protected under the tree there. So it's not only like the big mammals or smallish mammals that it might try to catch or feed on, especially the mother. Things that it might catch are birds as well. And there's another bird that is sitting right on the edge of the waterhole that we're about to show you now. Quite bright in color. There it is, right on top of a stump there. The magnificent grey heron. And I think also this heron knows that there's crocodiles here, as you can see, standing right up on top of that log there. Also keep an eye out for any food in terms of fish, and some type of frogs that it might feed on. I think what this grey heron and those crocodiles share in common is patience. And normally most of the time they have to wait for the food to come to them. As you can see, that heron is just waiting to see if there's any movements of fish or movement of frogs on the surface of the water. And if it sees one, it'll try to catch it. So I think we're gonna still try to stay in around this waterhole and enjoy this. But in the meantime, I'm gonna send you over to JP. I think he has some wildebeests.
Welcome back to Bushwalk. We just managed to sneak up to this wildebeest. We're behind a whole bunch of dead vegetation with trees that's been pushed over by elephants. So I think he might be aware of us as he's staring into this direction, because the zebras might have given away our position earlier. But yeah, this is a territorial male that's been hanging around over here. I actually feel quite sorry for him. He seems to be incredibly lonely. There's nobody that's been venturing in onto his territory lately. I've not seen a breeding herd in this area for quite a while now. But he's committed, and there's no ways that he's leaving this area. A few months ago, or a few weeks ago, I was actually watching him. He had another rival male that came in this area. And he tried to come and take the territory over, but he wasn't going to have any of it. And eventually, after 2 days, he chased away this new male that was trying to come and set up territory inside his territory. So in southern Africa, we find that wildebeest don't migrate. Although they historically used to migrate, we actually find that they're now sedentary and that they seldom wander more than some odd 20 kilometers away from their main areas. And the males, they don't leave the territories at all. What I do find fascinating is if you do go to East Africa and you follow the migration of wildebeest, which is the same species, although their regional form or subspecies over there is called a white-bearded gnu. These guys will actually have mobile territories, and that territory will move every single day as they undergo their migration north and south of the Mara River, depending on those rainfall seasons and how they're going to influence their movements. We here in South Africa also generally find that the herds of wildebeest, breeding herds and the bachelor herds, they will normally respond to distant lightning or rain, and they will move into those areas knowing that there's going to be a better chance of getting better quality food in those areas. However, at this time of year, the Lowveld receives very little rain, and less than 20% of the annual rainfall that does falls during this period, while 80% of the rainfall for the Lowveld occurs within the summer months. Good morning, Billy. It's assumed that we can separate zebras from one another by their unique patterns, and it's thought that they can do so too. And it seems to be quite an important role that they can identify an imprint on a specific pattern, especially with young zebras. Because what will happen is that the females will, when they are close to giving birth, they'll move out of a herd and then spend approximately 2 to 3 days with that young little zebra before it brings them back into the main herd. And the main reason is that it can imprint by means of the scent as well as most likely the coat pattern that they have. For those that don't know, zebras all have their own unique little black and white coat pattern, which acts like a fingerprint, which we can use to identify specific individuals. So while we're staring at these zebras as well, you'll notice that they've got black prominent black and white bands, and on the white band there's also a pale black or greyish coloured band, which is typical of what we refer to as a plain zebra, the pattern. We also, if you look underneath the belly, we have stripes that continue right underneath, unlike that of the mountain zebras, which has got an all pure white belly and lacks those gridiron pattern, that faint little mark on the white. We're going to stand here and watch him a little bit longer, but in the meanwhile, we're going to hand you over to TRISHALA and see what she has on offer.
Live. Live. Hold off speaking, seems like we've lost your audio.
Welcome back, everyone. It sounds like the Telematis are slowly mobile east back towards Triple M. Didn't think that stayed too long on Simbambili. We've been working that female track, and she's come down to this area, Leopard, and hasn't come out. So I'm not sure if maybe she's caught something. It's going to go around onto Triple M, and maybe we're going to get a standby on the Telematis. They are slowly mobile back towards the boundary. Standing by.
Yeah, you're welcome to make your way there. They're all moving from 110 open area. They're trying to cross Triple M. That's the next few minutes.
Okay, copy. So best approach should be Triple M itself.
Yeah, I think maybe that's going to be your best bet. They are quite close below there to Triple M. So yeah, I'm sure they're going to cross over.
Copy, thanks very much. I'm on Triple M now, heading north. Okay, so they are like naughty.
Anyone know what happened to the
Like naughty little children. They've gone in, and now they're coming out again. It's not their territory. Their tracks went all the way up here. We were tracking them this morning, and eventually when their tracks sort of headed... See, there's a track of a lion that was lying down. Let me just show it to you. It's really nice to get the perspective of the size. Oh, let me just give you a bit more space there, Darren. Can I just show this track first, Elton, and then we will definitely send you over to Trish and Ellie. Okay, so here is the front feet. Front feet over here. Here is the back. Let me just jump this side. Here's the back legs, the bottom, and over here. Maybe you can draw it. The legs, body, and here, tail in the sand. Two front feet sitting here. And then it stood up when it got up and walked away. So it's a nice size, isn't it? Nice to sort of yourself against a lion. Lying in the presence of cats. It's quite powerful. To go and
follow up on these lions, so I will send you over to TRICO for an update.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm sure you guys with Steve. That area and those crocodiles.
Good morning and welcome back on Bushwalk. We just covered a short little distance away from our zebra and the Libias, which we found earlier on. We actually located on that specific male Wildebeest's territorial toilet. There's a little midden that he has formed over here. So quite often what they do is they scrape this with their feet. They also like to roll in this, and here you can see the dung of this blue wildebeest male. Sometimes there's some older pellets over here. We see that they also cluster together like this. So one of the reasons why they quite often will roll in their own dung is that scent impregnates in the coat, and it seems that chemical or scent will then help to mark the territory or make itself more prominent in terms of determining who the individual is. So another thing that we have over here, here's a track. You can see it's a fairly broad track. It looks like two little barrels that's been put together, and it's got fairly straight outer edges. And in the case of a blue wildebeest male that's got a territory, it's very blunt here at the front. And the reason why we find that compared to males that don't have territories or females is that they do paw the ground quite often. And that's what creates that larger, broader, flat impression to the front of the track. We also find that they quite often will go and rub special secretions from underneath the eye onto branches quite close by to the areas where they've got their territories. So I want to point out the dung over here. Wildebeest, it is a species of antelope, although it doesn't resemble anything like an antelope. If we look at the scientific name, it's Trachus taurus, a bearded-like animal that looks like a bull, but its closest relatives are antelope species like Tswalu and Hartebeest. It's typical dung of a ruminant, always fine-grained. They're four-chambered stomached animals, but has a very advanced mechanism of digesting their food. And quite often we see that they feed, retreat to areas of safety or go into the shade, and then they will start grinding or regurgitating the food back into the mouth and rechewing it, which is they refer to as rechewing the cud, and then it goes through a special canal that's known as a diverticulum into the second stomach chamber, and from there each of those stomach chambers each have their own unique function. This is a very effective mechanism of digesting food and to gain the maximum amount of nutrition from your food. And over here we've got the dung of a very young warthog that also made a little deposit over here. It's very easy to identify. They're fairly angular pieces. It's sometimes confused with zebra. However, zebra has got kidney-shaped pellets with a little crack in the center. And if we break this open, we can see this is very loosely packed. And he's definitely not a ruminant. He's a hindgut fermenter animal with a single large stomach, where the digestion takes place, and therefore very easy to break apart from one another. We get two species of pigs here in South Africa, warthogs as well as bush pig. In general, I find that the coloration over here for warthog is much lighter compared to bush pig, which tends to be a little bit more darker in color and has more root material inside the dung. I've not seen bush pig on Pridelands yet, but quite close by to where we are, I have seen bush pigs in the past. Pigs also, they're omnivores. However, we see mostly plant material over here. They also very quickly scavenge. I've actually seen them several times in the past chasing cheetah as well as a young leopard off a impala kill and then feeding on the remains, firstly starting with the stomach contents and then even cleaning up the meat, but there was only bone and skin left. So a little bit of a closer inspection right over here. We've got another little fine-grained pellet, if you can see that, light in color. And this one belongs to a scrub hare, the hare that we quite often see in front of the vehicles at night time. They're running away from us. So it's the ethic. We normally put the lights off, let them move off, and then we move on with the vehicle. These guys, their strategy is to also re-eat their dung. That what they do is they will defecate at nighttime and in daytime. And what we do see is that the feces that's defecated at nighttime will be randomly left, and then those that will be in the daytime will be reconsumed. Laura, yes, they will feed on the dung over here, but at this time of the year we actually find that there is very few dung beetles because they've now basically started dying off with the cold temperatures, and their eggs will hatch and that will develop into the new next generation of dung beetles next year, or in the next rainy season when they will come out again. In general, we find within the winter months that there's only 1% of the insect population available or around, compared to in the winter months, summer months, my apologies, where there's a full 100%. And that is also one of the reasons why there's so many migrant birds coming into South Africa, and they're here to come and feast on those insects. Now we're going to move on. We're going to go and see what else we can go and find. In the meanwhile, we're going to hand you over to Pinder and see what they've been up to.
Unfortunately, no update, no further sign of that female cheetah. So we did see her. She was walking on a road perpendicular to the main road that we were driving on. This is the female cheetah, the Ashia female. And for whatever reason, potentially because she's got small cubs and she might be on her way back to the den, so she doesn't want anyone following her, she decided to hide from us. So we saw her, we were driving along the main road and we looked down one of the side roads. She was walking straight towards us. We slammed on brakes and she stopped as well, and she just watched us. And we were on the main road, so we wanted to get off the main road, but we didn't even approach closer to her, and she slunk off the road into this long grass. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to see her again. So, what I'm thinking of doing is just... Oh, we're gonna get covered in dust now. is I'm quite keen to keep trying for cheetah. There has been a female cheetah with an older cub, about 1.5 years, approaching 2 years old. And she's been moving around the grassy open areas of the southwestern part of Phinda. So we'll just check these open areas for her, and in the meantime send you to Trish, who's also got an update for you.
Well, from my side, not too much happening, except that now you can hear me. Sorry that you couldn't earlier. But we did have an elephant. Hopefully you saw what was the trail end of a young bull that was drinking at Twin Dams, and then we saw him in the Milwaukee as well. But then he was looking a bit nervous, so he ran off quite quickly, and then we just kind of left him. But I'm glad I saw an elephant for today. Disappointed I couldn't share with you, but glad I found it. We've been pretty much
Oh, welcome back to Phinda, everyone. I'm sorry about the technical issue that has potentially arisen in Djuma. Some weavers and quilias on the bushes in front of us. Who have you got, Johan? There you go. No, further right. You had it. Yeah, in. There we go. So while we wait to see what happens, see if we can connect to Djuma again, we just have a look at these little birds. It looks as though got some quilias and some juvenile quilias as well. I'm just bringing out my bird book, and I just want to double check, but it looks like some adult and juvenile quilias.
We have received our second batch of name plaques, which is super exciting, and Marcel is busy mounting them as we speak. For those of you that don't know, we are offering the opportunity for Wild Earth explorers to get their names engraved on a plaque like this. Once your name is on the plaque, it will then be attached onto the vehicle. Marcel, what are you up to?
I'm busy mounting plaques on Trusty Rusty.
This means that even though you're at home watching this, it'll still feel as though you're on the vehicle with us as we bumble about the bush. This means that V&A, Prajash, Melanie Greenwood, Linda J. Poley and Stephen Humbert will be riding along with us as we bumble through the bush, even though you're watching it from home. Now that the name plaques are on the back of the vehicle, it's time for us to head out and go and see what we can find.
Founded in 1973, the Endangered Wildlife Trust has consistently and effectively worked towards achieving our conservation legacy. Contribute to this legacy by visiting EWT's Get Wild eShop and purchase products with a purpose.
My name is Steve, and one of my favorite things at Wild Earth is getting questions from you. The type of questions that I really like are those ones that really help us to unpack and understand and really integrate the ecological knowledge and fully appreciate the importance that animals such as these Cape buffalo bring to the ecosystem. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, you're going to have to register on the website. But once registered, just head on over to the live safari page and enter your question under the live feed.
We have a baby pangolin, a baby pangolin. This is off the charts. This animal is about from your fingertips to your elbow. That's the total length of this animal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is like now my 4th Christmas in a week. We should do this more often.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
That's okay. Welcome back, everyone. we're having quite a challenging time, but it's quite fun. There we go. Well done, Johan. And we have got some juvenile quillias and adult red-billed quillias. Oh, Johan, go on to that dead tree there. It's quite a nice view of some wattled starlings. Can you see the dead tree, Johan? Yeah. If you go in on that one, some pretty interesting looking birds. Oh, and there they all go. Where are they going to land? One left. There's one left. So those are what we call wattled starlings. Shame, man, that one got left behind. Very distinctive call this time of year, that of the wattled starling. It's gone. I'll show you in the book quickly. So that last one that was left behind on that dead tree was a wattled starling, which is this one here. It was a juvenile, so there wasn't too much color available, but it was that bird over there. This is what the breeding males look like, which is quite different. You can hear some common waxbills. There's a little flock of them that have just flown around us. So that's the wattled starling that we can see at the moment. And then the quillias, which we were looking at. Somewhat of a transition phase. This is the red-billed quillia. And obviously the adult, I'm sure lots of you have seen quillias before. Forward, the glare. Okay. Yeah, so that's the quillia over there. And these juveniles had quite a lot of yellow on them. Almost similar to that of a red-headed quillia. That being the breeding female, but these were not red-headed quillias. We do get them here, but definitely not enough, not as much yellow as that on these little birds. They were definitely more like that, with a pale bill. Your hand's going nice and close to the bill versus the red-headed quillia, which has got a pinkish coloured bill. That was the main difference there between how we could tell whether it was a red-headed quillia female or a red-billed quillia female. And now, once again, it's very quiet, but there are birds calling. So we are going to continue checking along the hills, or the hillsides through this area, see if we have any luck with that female cheetah with the one sub-adult cub. Otherwise, this habitat is really, it's a good area to come and look for rhinos. You'll see all the shrub, all the vegetation is quite low, and you can imagine a black rhino moving through this area, being able to reach up and being able to reach a lot of the leaves in this area. So it is a really good browsing area for black rhinos. And just like with the white rhinos earlier, we were speaking about available resources. There's water here, there's some drainage lines with really good cover and shelter from the elements. And then on the sides of those valleys is all these smaller shrubs which have got really good browsing value for black rhinos and other browsing species. Ralph, here in South Africa, European starling. I haven't seen a European starling myself, but I am almost 100% sure that it is possible. But potentially he's got a different name here in South Africa. I'll quickly stop and go to page 440 where the starlings are. Because we have quite a few different species of starlings here that do migrate. And I think that this common starling might be one of the species that you see in Europe. To the right. Yeah. There we go. If you look there, the name is Europaeus spriu. Used to be called a European starling. And that is the same species of starling that you get in Europe. Now common and resident to Africa, South Africa. So yes, we do definitely get the European starling in South Africa, but here it's called the common starling. Oh, I have to move out of the way of all the thorns. Black rhinos haven't been busy enough, haven't been eating enough in this area. So as we explore a little bit further into this area, I'm going to send you back across to JP in Pridelands, see what he's got for you.
Good morning and welcome back on Bushwalk again. We covered a little bit of a distance. A few minutes ago we were looking at a wildebeest midden. I was a little bit distracted over there. We saw some movement in the back of the vision. It was actually buffalo that popped up their head. When we went to get up, they actually all ran off, unfortunately. So we started continuing down the trail, moving away from them. And as we were discussing warthog earlier, I just wanted to point out the difference between the warthog and the zebra. Over here is the pellets of a zebra, much larger and, as mentioned, almost kidney-shaped in appearance. And generally it's got a little crack here in the center of the dung pellet. Also, once again, horses are being hindgut fermenters, or they've got a single large stomach, just like the warthog has, unlike the wildebeest. So sometimes this was one of my favorite mediums of soft materials to use for making fire by means of friction, where you use a base plate and you also use a friction stick on that base plate. And what I'll do is I'll normally break this open like this, and I'll use that the coal can fall onto this and start smoldering, and then add little pieces of grasses and things onto it. Slowly you gently blow onto it until I've got a flame, and then start adding the larger pieces of wood to make my fire when I sleep out. As to a very soft material, as you can see, and once again very loose. Sometimes what I also use it for is to check for wind direction, instead of having to kick the ground. So quite often you'll see trackers or guides kicking the soil so that they can kick dust up into the air to start seeing which direction the wind is blowing when they are approaching animals. However, we were taught rather to take soft grasses or learn to take dung like that of zebra or scrub hair and drop it into the air to determine the direction. Because when you do kick, you're actually creating a disturbance, and the animals actually hear that. So they've got incredibly good hearing, and something like a scuff or a kick on the soil can actually get an animal to run off or to move off away from you when you actually do want to find them. We're going to continue and go and see what else we can go and find for the moment.
Welcome to Simbambili, everybody. Welcome once again to the Sphinx pose. Here we've got the Talamati Pride that have moved closer towards Triple M, closer towards the gate. Many of them are lying up in the shade over there. Some of them, though, are out in the sunshine, so I foresee them moving further. One of the adult lionesses is in front, and she's in the shade still. I mean, in the sun, and if she moves, the whole pride will follow her. But others, while waiting for her to make a decision, have found a beautiful bit of shade under a red bush willow. So they gave us a bit of a runaround this morning, the Talamatis. We were on their trail for some time. And then the tracks headed towards the west. And I checked on the radio, and they were quite far down in Simbambili, close to the Simbambili Dam. It's an area we don't get signal at. So we thought, let's just wait, because no doubt these naughty lions will come out again. When I say naughty, everybody, I have no doubt last night with all the calling that they did, there was calling reciprocated from other prides. And they would have known, okay, cool, sounds like the Nkuhuma Pride or the lions that occupy this area are further away, so they can venture a little bit further west. And so they went on a bit of a mission looking for some food. Whether they got some, it's hard to say. It doesn't look like the bellies have gained any mass. That warthog yesterday morning is probably all they've been digesting. But it's something very common. We speak. Yesterday morning, people were asking me about the territory and how fluid they are. Do prides overlap? And they will cross into other territories, everybody, but they don't stick around. They'll cross in, make a kill, have a meal, or miss, and then pretty much the same day will exit again. Will exit again, and it looks like they're only 100 meters here from the boundary. And so there's a good chance that they will be leaving as soon as it gets a bit too warm for them. The Canova, stunning, perfect picture. It is, and he's standing out in the sunshine, looking so regal, isn't he? Is that a new cut he's sporting on his nose there, or is that an old one? I was doing ID kits of young male lions years ago, and it became nearly impossible to keep up to date with the scratches. It doesn't look that fresh. It became nearly impossible to get up to date with how many times they fought each other while eating. And if you watched the kill yesterday, you would have seen how Darkmane gave a few of them a hiding. But most of that was on the back of the neck, top of the head, not really on the face. I'm interested to see his injuries, because he had a claw stuck out of his face at one point, which looked rather painful. Okay, well, we're going to stay with the lions and see what they get up to. Send you over to Trish, who's got a bird.
And a big one at that, the Southern Ground Hornbill. I think you might have seen them today with Steve already. This one is right here in quarantine. Looks like it may have found itself a snack. What do you have there, Hornbill? Ooh. They eat all sorts, and they can be quite merciless when grabbing prey, things from scrub hairs, snakes, lizards, all that kind of thing. And sometimes they swallow it, they're still moving. Squirrels and frogs. It's hard to imagine it take a squirrel, but it definitely can. And now it is hiding behind the bush. Pop out, pop out. No, it does not want to listen to me. I like looking at these guys because they're so big. You hardly ever get to see big birds like that around here. I always enjoy spending time with them, especially when they call. I'm just going to reverse a little bit. You can see we're quite far. I'm just going to... Actually, let's go forward a little bit and see if it will pop out here. Doesn't seem like it. Well, we'll just have a closer look in a few seconds. Well, okay, I see them. They haven't popped out, but we popped in. Just so you guys, there we go. Oh, off it just slinks away in the grass there, but we're going to send you back over to Pinda. They've got a really nice big herd of buffalo.
Yeah. So no, not quite black rhino, but we've come across an enormous herd of buffaloes. And it's a number of different herds that are spread out in the area surrounding us at the moment. And Johan's got a nice big bull framed up there. But this is now the third herd of buffaloes that has done the exact same thing. Initially, I didn't want to even let Johan put them on camera because the first herd did exactly that, and then the second herd did exactly that, and I was worried that this herd would do it, and they seem to settle down. Oh, there's more coming. Here we go, Johan. And I suspect it's the wind that's stirring all these buffaloes up. Can hear lots of mooing going on in the valley where all these buffaloes are running down towards. It's quite unusual to see them behaving like this. So it's a combination of the wind plus us being here, and they are mostly downwind of us. So the wind is blowing from our left-hand side to the right, which is where they were all standing. And we've come from further back in that direction, which means that they've had our scent, possibly had our scent for a while now. And you can actually see them still running on the... Okay, no, they've stopped. Do you see them there, Johan? On the other hillside. Yeah. And they're running up from the valley towards the open area. They're still running. Some of them are still running. Some of them have settled. Shame.
We all have a busy schedule and a lifestyle which is confined to stress and tensions. For so many of us, the hustle and bustle of a tedious life has meant we have lost our inner peace. Traveling is an ultimate remedy that lets us unwind and helps us experience peace in the lap of nature. Wild Earth encourages the benefits of travel by giving away an amazing prize every month.
I was totally overwhelmed to receive this fantastic prize of 3 nights at Chitwa. Wild Earth has been a lifesaver for us during the pandemic and has kept us sane. Thank you so very much, Wild Earth.
Sign up to be an explorer today, and it could be you jetting off on an all-expenses-paid-for safari experience. Wild Earth Explorers. It's in your nature.
And I find getting out to a local royal park brings me so much closer to nature. I can leave my pain at home. And like watching Wild Earth, I find it's the most amazing way to step out of life's difficulties and just breathe.
The chirping and fluttering of these Java finches at the feeder in our garden helps us start each day joyfully in connection with nature.
So this is our piece of nature that we've been enjoying and has been keeping us sane during lockdown. This morning we have 8 oyster catchers on our beach, which is a real treat.
Hug a tree, Steve, just for you.
Hi everyone, my name's Daniel Fisher and I'm going to be your guide this afternoon. I'm looking really forward to taking you through and showing you all the beautiful places here at and beyond Ngala. If you have any questions, please register on our website. Once registered, go to the live page feed and post your questions underneath the live feed. Join me on my next safari through and beyond Ngala on Wild Earth. Send me live questions through the Wild Earth website and I'll answer them live from the African bush.
Alright, welcome back everybody. So Mpa and myself decided we're gonna drive certain roads that we haven't driven before and and see what we find in these areas. So far it's been quiet. We're actually driving along our southeastern boundary. The boundary is literally like 5 kilometers or 4 not 4K, 4 or 5 meters away from us. As you can hear, there's more cars passing through here. Yeah, it's looking very quiet this side. Even some birds, like there's literally not much moving about. But I guess that's the time of the day where they will start to settle. I think we're gonna slowly make our way back to camp and yeah, see what we find along the way. But in the meantime, I'm gonna send you over to Steve with his lions.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, it's getting hot. It's going to be time to move off, and this lioness decided to move out of the sunshine. She was the lead lioness, and she's gone and parked herself in the shade. But there are still two out in the open. Most of the pride is underneath the shade of that tree with Dark Mane, who's snuck in there as well. I wonder how long these two are going to stay out in the sunshine for. Horse lover, well, isn't this normally what we see? We see lots of this. Yesterday we were quite blessed with how much movement they gave us. So often we come to a lion sighting and we spend a lot of time with what we call flat cats. But they've done a lot of movement last night. They were up and down, up and down. We were testament to the tracks. They chased a few rhino at one point. There were some tracks of rhino running away from them. Young lions can't help themselves, just like with our vehicle. They sometimes feel the need to go for a wheel or something moving. They got to chase it, obviously. They've got no chance with a rhino. Better off sticking to warthogs and palakuru and maybe even trying a herd of buffalo, although this pride is made up of a number of youngsters at the moment. I think there's only 2 adults with the pride after watching them yesterday. 2 adults, 6 youngsters, 2 of them being young boys and Dark Mane. Jennifer, it's all about food. They'll keep moving until they find food and keep moving. It's not about distance. They don't have a pedometer on kilometers traveled per day. They can travel enormous distances in search of food. And often people think they're quite lazy, when in fact they've been up and down, up and down. Okay, yeah, this young lioness wants to know, where did Mom go? Did she go and cross the boundary? This is the little stompy one, who I swear has got some short back legs. If you have a look at how she walks, her back legs, her hips are actually short. A classic and her back left leg is also not 100%. She's definitely got some deformity. You see the length of her hips. She's trying, where's Mum gone? She's going to now look right and see her lying in the grass. No, she hasn't looked. She's trying to track her. Where you gone, Mommy? This might actually encourage the rest of the pride to follow. She's not sure. Often the lead lionesses are the ones who take the lead, of course, and everybody follows them. Now, all the other youngsters are going to be like, where are we headed? She's calling now. Now the others are going to get out from the shade and start moving, all because one didn't know where Mum went. Anyway, everybody, there's a very good chance that Telemarties will be back on Najuma this afternoon, or at least close to Sydney's dam. We do thank you for joining us this morning. It's been wonderful having you on board with us. There is the lead lioness. We look forward to hosting you again this afternoon, coming to you from all of our wonderful locations. We'll be seeing you the same time, the same place on this Friday afternoon. We do thank you for all your questions and your comments. We'll see you later this afternoon. Thank you from all of us here. Till then, see you later. Goodbye.